Hey guys, welcome back to Dirty Boots Capital. I'm your host, Tony Lopes, and today we have Michael Vandi with us. He is the CEO of Addy AI, and we're going to be talking a little bit about, or a lot of it, about artificial intelligence relative to the loan process. So I'm really excited to chat with Michael here today. Michael, welcome to Dirty Boots Capital.
Thank you for having me, Tony.
Yeah, this is going to be a fun conversation. We already started a little bit before I hit the record button. And so, why don't you help us understand? So, you're developing this artificial intelligence, this AI loan processor, which is like the future. There's a lot of things going the route of AI, and this is to us in the real estate, me and a lot of the listeners are in real estate. We kind of see this coming. We've seen it coming for the past couple of years in a lot of different ways. So this is not surprising to us, but I am really curious, like, what are you guys developing? How's it going to work? And walk us through this Addy AI loan processor.
So we're coming at it from the position of the current lending process is painstakingly slow. Like you've been through a process where you submit your application materials as a borrower to a lender or a broker, and then it takes a couple of days for them to review it, get back to you, and then they have to request some missing documents. And all of that takes weeks after the pre-approval process for you to finally get approved for the loan. And then that's because there's a lot of manual document review in that process. There's a lot of follow-ups, a lot of due diligence that needs to happen. So what we're doing at Addy AI is we're putting AI in the hands of lenders to help automate document review processes, to help automate due diligence, and also to do follow-ups. So imagine this. When a lender receives an application and has all of the application materials, think W-2, appraisals, everything, the AI automatically determines which documents it needs for that approval based on the guidelines and policies, and then it knows which documents are missing and can go ahead and generate follow-up messages to the borrower from the broker or the loan officer. And then it could even call up the borrower asking for those missing documents. It knows exactly who the borrower is. It knows where they can upload the documents to, whether it's like a loan origination system or POS that people use, and gives them all of that information, helps moves the process faster. When all of the documents are available, we use AI to review the documents to find out insights about the document. Are there large cash deposits that need to be flagged? And then after the loan has been closed, you want to create that follow-up relationship with your customer. So looking at, do they need a refinance or like an annual mortgage review in 1 year? Scheduling those conversations are all been handled by AI. So that's in a nutshell what we do.
I'm taking some notes here because you already given me a lot of questions to ask. So is this specifically for loan processors, or will this provide some sort of a feedback loop to the actual home buyer?
It provides a better experience for the home buyer, but primarily it's being used by the loan processor.
Excellent. Okay. Help the listeners understand in terms of the duration. Today we have what, like 30, 45 days to
Yeah.
get loan approval. This is going to shorten it to what's the target?
About 2 weeks is what we've seen. We've seen 50% reduction. And that is the bottleneck right now is how fast can borrowers respond with the documents that are needed. Is the AI automatically understands like which documents are needed and can create those follow-up calls and follow-up messages instantly. It just depends on how fast the turnaround is from borrowers to submit the required docs.
And again, for the viewers, for the listeners, for folks who haven't done any loan processing or maybe done one or two, what ends up happening all too often during this loan processing process of gathering all the documentation, submitting all the documentation, sits on somebody's desk until it
Yes.
gets reviewed, right?
Yes.
Right. We've seen it, we witness it, we know it, Michael. This is what happens. It sits on somebody's desk until actually somebody touches it. And then it's what I refer to as death by a thousand cuts. Because what'll happen is somebody, once they open the file and they start to look at the documents I submitted,
Yeah.
they will say, "Oh, you're missing a documentation for insurance." And then I
Yes.
I got to go look for it, and then I got to submit it. And then a few days later, I'll get another document saying, "Oh, we're missing your bank statement." Okay, I got to go find it, PDF it, send it to them, right? So it's death by a thousand cuts. Every day or so, a couple of days, I'll receive a call saying, "Hey, I need this, I need this, I need that." And it's painful back and forth. Whereas if I can just get a document, and you tell me if Addy AI does this, right? If I could just get one message that says, Tony, hey, you numbskull, you're missing your insurance document, you're missing your bank statement, you're missing your W-2, whatever it is. Wow, just provide me one document on day one, and I
Yeah.
can then scan that data, those documents that are needed, get it over to the loan processor without having to like waste a week or two of my time and their time to see this loan age on the shelf while it's waiting for these documents. I mean, is that one of the goals of this?
Yeah. So the faster you can approve these applications, the more volume you can process and the more revenue you can bring to your business. Right. So if you're looking at it from a lender perspective, because these application, like let's say even like a electronic residential loan application, even after you submit it, the content of the application is dynamic because you look at the application, everyone has a different situation, and then you discover, just as you've mentioned, that you need a W-2 or a W-9 in particular cases, then you have to go ask them for it. But what's happening now is because the AI can reason, the AI would know exactly what's needed at the time of when they're submitting the application. So that person might actually still be on your site submitting the ERLA, electronic residential application, and then it's knowing exactly what needs to be submitted. So that way the application comes in complete. And whenever it comes in complete, you can continue the review process.
So there's actual machine learning built into this process, into this software to be able to give certain timeframes to say, hey, those pay stubs that you submitted are now aged, and now you need to send me 2 or 3 new pay stubs, or that bank statement has aged, or there's an amount on there that trips a threshold. You now need to give me some more information. So it has that machine learning built into it, which is great, which is something we found all too many times. We get to the very close to the closing table and it's like,
Yeah.
oh, this document's missing. And it's been in process for 45 days. And we're
Yeah.
like, why are we finding out about this now?
Now,
And
yeah.
it's very frustrating. So in terms of what you've already spoken about, so I'm going to just to reiterate a little bit here, in terms of the problem that it solves for the home buyer, what do you think is the biggest problem that it solves for the home buyer?
I think when you're buying a home, you just want to get into your home quicker. If it's your first home, you just want to get the loan approved quicker. You want to reduce uncertainty. So the biggest problem it solves for the home buyer is uncertainty and also having a smoother experience.
Yeah, just kind of like buying a car. Anytime like that comes up in my life, I just cringe. And I know I'm not the only one. I know like there's people out there buying a car, it's just you cringe because you have to go to the dealership. Or at minute you drive onto the lot, somebody's coming out of the door and there's
Yeah.
this whole dance that occurs and it's like so painful, right? It's like just tell me what the price is. I just like I know where I need to be. Like let's not dance around this. I don't have 4 hours to spend with you on a Saturday morning. Let's do, right? Loan processing is the same
Yeah.
thing. Let's make it easier. We can make it easier. And I appreciate you, Michael, for creating this to be able to help home buyers. Now, this sounds great for just like the typical mom and pop or individual that wants to buy a home. But a lot of my listeners out there are investors. Is this
Yeah.
something that could work for the investor community?
So real estate investors have had the reps in, let's say, applying for these loans. Like if you're in the fix and flip business, you'd have a company like Kiavi that you go to all the time. So you have like a specific lender that you go to. So you kind of have like a repeatable pattern on where you get these loans from, right? So imagine that that investor that you're talking to automatically now becomes 10 times more efficient and can service you faster.
Mm.
So if you're an investor, I would say the biggest benefit for an investor is the lender that you have as a go-to lender. Imagine the efficiency gains that that lender would have in order to service you faster. What some of the things that we've also done for investors is we've published a lender directory, and our lender directory is a natural language search. So, for instance, you want to find the right investors for the properties that you're looking at. Like,
Mm.
so you want to say, like, well, what are some of the investors in California that invest in fix and flip loans at XYZ rates? That's a question that you would want to ask, like a real estate expert. You can ask our AI, and it would give you exactly those results
Mm.
without having to go through 4, 5, 6 pages of Google search finding people. So we have these AI agents that go on the internet, find all of that information, and we've provided it for free. So you can go on there and then ask these questions. So that's on the investor side. That's where I think would have the biggest gains is finding which lenders are the right lenders for the property that you're willing to invest in.
Yeah, and for investors, improving our ability to close on a property quicker
Yeah.
is sometimes very very advantageous, or from a seller perspective, they like somebody who can maybe close quicker.
Yeah.
So for us investors out there, maybe one of the takeaways from this conversation, right? If you're a listener, if you're an investor, is to make sure your loan processor, your bank, is using Addy AI to be able to make sure that you are going to get the quickest close time possible. Because now today we'll put, hey, we'll close in 30 days, we'll close in 45 days. And that's really dictated by the amount of time it takes to do the loan processing. Really, that's
Yeah.
what it is.
Yeah.
But if I can narrow that down to 14 days, now my offer looks that much more attractive to a
Yeah.
seller because they see me as a stronger buyer being able to do it
Exactly.
in 14 days. So that's a huge takeaway. So for you guys out there who are listening and wondering how this helps you, check with your loan processor, your bank, your credit union, whoever you use, to make sure they are using some form of artificial intelligence like an Addy AI or Addy AI itself to be able to expedite the loan process. So that's super important, I think, as a result of this conversation. Now,
Yeah.
I do want to ask a question about, because I know sometimes folks are very sensitive, rightfully so, about artificial intelligence displacing workers. Talked a lot about it, not only here on my channel, but also at conferences relative to that aspect of AI. What do you have to share about that in terms of people losing their particular jobs because AI is entering the workforce?
I have a very personal answer to this question because I am a software engineer. My background is in computer science. And I tell you, man, like software engineering is being largely displaced by AI. I don't think in 2010, even 10 years, that I'm going to have a career as an active software engineer if you're not on like principal engineer level where you're more of like an architect telling the AI what software to build. We've seen autonomous software development agents that you can tell, go build this software for me. And right now they're clunky, but imagine what would happen in 10 years. And even now in the company, about 10 to maybe even 20% of all the code we write is written by AI of some sort, whether it's some sort of like autocomplete like GitHub Copilot or auto-generated by some AI software like Cursor. So I see it as, well, how am I setting myself up for success in the future? And for what we're doing, specifically in the loan origination space, we have to be realistic and say, well, what really is origination? It's like a bunch of document review, a bunch of follow-ups, like things that AI could be better at. And who are the people that are doing these right now? They are loan processors. Eventually, AI is going to handle all of the loan processing tasks. And so maybe we can have these loan processors be mortgage advisors who have
Mm,
that human touch to
yeah.
advise people on the loan, go to these closings, things that AI cannot do. Like I like loan officers that go to closings, like have that personal relationship with the borrower and just leave all of the processing tasks to AI. Like previously, researchers would hire human calculators to punch in numbers for them until the calculator replaced that. So I think we have to start thinking about where can we transition the current roles within the origination space into a role that's more human, emotionally oriented.
You're spot on with that description. Very, very elegant. We've spoken with a lot of different people in the AI space, and they're saying the same thing. It's really those jobs that are in the middle that are going to be, I'll say, at risk.
Yeah.
Because AI is coming along. We look at those jobs as saying some of those jobs are going to be moved to the front end of the process with requirement definition,
Yeah.
right? Because AI can't do that. AI can't interface with a buyer or with a customer to really intellectually understand those requirements. So some are going to move to the front end, some are going to move to the back end. Again, from a customer relation standpoint, from a customer service standpoint, you need to have some more, as of today, AI doesn't have that intellectual capacity to reason as much as we human can do and be able to have those conversations. So we do see a lot of folks are seeing those jobs being spread to really more the human customer interfacing ends, the front and the back. So
Yeah.
yeah, we think, which will make the experience, because how many
Right.
times do we get through something and we're like, we go to pick up a phone and we're trying to get customer service or customer support and we're like, I can't get anybody.
Yeah.
Well, what if I pick up the phone and now I can? I
And,
mean,
and the real estate industry is actually the right experiment for job displacement because we've actually seen job displacement that is not AI related. Because in the last 2 years, years, the industry lost like 47% of all loan officers because rates were high. So
Mm,
how did that impact the industry? Lenders started bleeding cash. So we already have that sort of like experiment, albeit caused by something different. So we
yeah.
can see how bringing AI into that mix can impact things further.
Yeah, that's a great example. I also share the Henry Ford assembly line model, right? Where the assembly line is analogous to AI. The assembly line, man, that just made it so much quicker, easier, faster to build a car, right? So a lot of workers were displaced. Are we worse off today because of the assembly line? No, we're actually better off today because of the assembly line. I think AI is going to do the same thing. It's going to take some time. Right now, there are, like you had said, I'll use your there's some parts are clunky,
Yeah.
but over 10 years, that's going to figure itself out because smart guys like you are in there fixing what's broke with AI. So that's great. I mean, I'm super curious. Like again, I'm in the real estate world of things. I mean, do you see this whole AI thing getting legs? Right now, you're working on the loan processing portion of it, introducing AI to that. What about like how's this going to affect AI, that is? How's AI going to affect real estate agents? Do you see there may be a time and place in the future where we won't need as many or we won't need real estate agents because AI is doing that role? What about contract lawyers, real estate lawyers? Because a lot of this stuff is just boilerplate, right? What
Right.
somebody does for me to purchase a home is going to be the same contract and legalese that they're going to do for you, Michael. So can AI fill a role there? And then also, I look at the title companies. Much like loan processors, the title companies look for a very standard list of stuff. Do I have these things? So much like
Yeah.
a loan processor, can that be streamlined and
Yeah.
made more efficient with AI? Like, where do you see this going?
If we look at it, let's say from an engineering perspective, what are the objects in real estate? So you have properties, you have people, whether it's like buyers and sellers. If you're in a role that you're not actively interfacing with properties, you're not physically interfacing with properties, you're not physically interfacing with people, then your job is at risk of being replaced. So real estate agents, I think, are safe. The fact that they have to have some physical presence
Mm.
to it, so handling showings, things like that. Some of that is also moving online now. But I think that real estate agents, even the fact that have to create content for your business, so you have to think about, well, how AI replaces content marketing for real estate. So real estate agents, I think their role would be replaced, but the actual physical human touch, the side of that contract lawyer side of it, is at a huge risk of being replaced, just like software engineers are, because it's if we look at what AI is good at now, it's been trained on a bunch of words and spitting out a bunch of words that it's been trained on. We have millions and millions of contracts as training data. Like, what is the variation? Contracts that have been made in the past, the contracts that would be made in the future. Like, what's the permutation of changes that would happen? Not much. So it's not like the contracts that I'm going to make are vastly different from contracts that have already been made. So AI can generate those contracts. Now, what would happen is, instead of creating contracts, you have lawyers who are really good at reading contracts and identifying mistakes. So you don't need as much. So the job would move from creating contracts to more of like verifying and reading contracts, like evaluation. So you won't need as many lawyers there. The title side of things, I'm not really familiar with the title side of things, but I think a similar disruption would come with the title side of things as well.
Yeah, that's fascinating. I think folks who are not paying attention to the AI evolution really and how it's entering into our daily lives, I think they may be at risk. And that's part of the reason of doing these podcasts. And I so appreciate you, Michael, for coming on and talking about Addy AI and all these different
Absolutely.
things because it's important for us to be sharing this experience and for folks to know how it helps them in
Yeah.
this case, in terms of purchasing a home, right? That's super important for folks because it's difficult today. I get it. But also in terms of kind of letting it soak in and say, how does AI impact me today?
Right.
And or say in 4 years, right? If I'm a
Yeah.
young person going to college and I'm going to college for software engineering, that's great, but let's be careful there because the training you're receiving in a college environment, maybe in 4 years, AI is going to be doing that role. So
Yeah.
we have to be careful with some of that stuff. So super important. So Michael, thank you so much for coming on the podcast. For folks who want to learn more about Addy AI and maybe some of the other things you're working on, what's the best way for them to reach out to you?
I'm very active on LinkedIn. So if you Google my name on LinkedIn, Michael Vandi, I'm the first link that pops up. If you're really, really curious to reach out, our website, addy.so, is the perfect way to reach out. If you book a demo, I'm 100% going to be the person on the call. So
Oh, that's awesome. I love it. So you guys are doing demos for loan processors and different folks who have an interest. That's awesome. That's huge. Excellent. So Michael, thank you so much for coming on. Appreciate you being with us today.
thank you so much, Tony.